Hi there, my name is Victoria Bowler, and today we are continuing our planning of an entire year of elementary music. In the last video, we talked about establishing why we are teaching, what we're going to teach, and when we will teach it. So we have our concepts, we have our pacing, now we need some songs. In an active music room, our repertoire is the context for what we teach, which makes this part really fun. We're going to talk about how to know if a song will work for our curriculum from a musical analysis standpoint. And we'll also look at some resources for exactly where to find songs, and then we'll talk about creating a song list for each grade. Let's talk about how we'll know if a song will work from a musical analysis standpoint. Like I said, this part is, in my opinion, really fun, but just in case you're not interested in the music theory piece of it, you can skip ahead and I'll add the chapter titles below. So when we have a song that we want to use, how are we going to know if it will work for our musical goals? One way is for us to open up an anthology and look at songs organized by concept that someone else has put together. And that is a great option. I definitely do not believe that we all have to come up with completely original songs from scratch for each grade level. Definitely using existing resources is a great way to go. But knowing how to analyze a song is also valuable for us to know because it lets us explore repertoire that isn't on someone else's list. So when students come to us with a pop song that they want to use, or if we hear a song at a workshop, or if we hear something on the radio, we can make a mental map of the song and get an idea of where it might fit into our curriculum. So to do this, we're going to sing the song and find the extractable phrases and then compare those phrases to our musical sequence that we talked about in the last video. Okay, let's speak this together. Here we go. Vamos a jugar el juego de la oca loca che. Balo, 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 me. Chico, 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 che. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is a counting out rhyme. It's a clapping game around the circle. So for this game, my right hand is going to be up, my left hand is down, and then all around the circle with our right hands up and our left hands down, we'll scooch them so that our hands are on top or below each other, and then we'll put them on an elevator. So hands go down, hands go up, and now we can pass this clap around the circle while we speak. And then whomever that last word lands on, whoever 10 is on, that person is out unless they pull their hand out in time. Again, my students love this game. Let's speak it on rhythm syllables. Here we go. Toddy, 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 ta. Takadimi, toddy, toddy, ta. Takadimi, toddy, toddy, ta. And then we have the numbers at the end. Just in case you are a Kodaly syllables person, that is fine as well. We go ti, and then tika in that second line. All right, so we've sung the song, we've spoken the rhyme. At this point, we spoke it on text and on rhythm syllables. And now let's do some of the analysis portion here to see what is inside that maybe we could pull and teach from a musical analysis standpoint. Our extractable phrases, now that we're on step 2, our extractable phrases, these are the musical subunits of the piece. So if we think about phrasing of an actual phrase as like a musical idea marked by a cadence, the sub-phrases, those subunits are the little smaller ideas. Oftentimes in the folk material that we use in our classes, these subunits are going to be 4-ish beats. They don't always have to be, but that's a good rule of thumb just to kind of start out with. Okay, so now let's go through and mark our little phrases, our subunits for our extractable phrases. Vamos a jugar el juego. Great. De la oca loca che. And then balo, 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 balo me. Chico, 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 chico che. Great, so we have 4 subunits, sub-phrases that we can use as extractable phrases. So now that our phrases are marked, we're going to take them and compare them to this rhythmic sequence. So because we are using a sound before sight approach that emphasizes aural skills and moving from the known to the unknown, we want our new musical pattern, our new musical element, to be surrounded by other known concepts. So this sequence of rhythm concepts will be familiar to you if you watched that earlier video on yearly planning. This is pulled from that curriculum outline that we were looking at in the last video. So I want, again, the new concept to be surrounded by other known concepts. In this case, the phrase that I have pulled from the larger rhyme is balo 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 me, and then the next pattern, that next subunit, is the exact same rhythm. So I've gone ahead and thrown it in there. Takadimi tadi tadi ta. So in this case, the new musical sound is 4 sounds on 1 beat, what we notate in our music class as takadimi. So takadimi is the new element right here, and it's surrounded by other known elements. If we go up in our rhythm sequence, ta and tadi are previously known. They come before. So that means that takadimi would be the element that we could teach with this rhyme if we want to. So that gives us 2 extractable phrases that we can use for teaching takadimi. So if we have a list of songs that we are using, we'll talk about this in a second. If we have a list of songs that we are using to teach specific concepts, then this rhyme can go on our takadimi list. Does that make sense? So we sing the song, we find the phrases, the extractable phrases, and we compare the new element in that phrase to the rhythm sequence. Let's take a different example and do I Don't Care If the Rain Comes Down. This song is a delight. I use this similar to Vamos a Jugar. This is one that I can use from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. Very versatile. So let's sing this together, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. I don't care if the rain comes down. I'm gonna dance all day. I don't care if the rain comes down. I'm gonna dance all day. Hey, hey, carry me away. I'm gonna dance all day. Hey, hey, carry me away. I'm gonna dance all day. Great. Let's add those sub-phrases now. We'll put those brackets above them to show where our sub-phrases are. I've marked these as I don't care if the rain comes down. I'm gonna dance all day. And then that next line repeats. If I go to this third line, I have hey, hey, carry me away. And that's a nice, neat little sub-phrase, isn't it? Hey, hey, carry me away, as is the next one. I'm gonna dance all day. So these are very convenient, small extractable phrases, or they will be extractable phrases. The nice thing about this song in particular is that it is in A-B form. And so because it's in binary form, once we've analyzed this first line right here, we've already figured out the rhythm of the second line. Same thing with this third line. When we figure out the third one, we've already figured out the fourth one. So the form of this song is kind of helping us with the analysis a little bit. So let's take this very first subphrase. I don't care if the rain comes down. Let's speak it on rhythm syllables. Here we go. Ta-di, ta-di-mi, ta-di, ta. Or Kodaly syllables. Here we go. It's ti-ti-ti, tika-ti-ti-ta. Or if you are using Gordon, you can use that as well. Whatever you use is all good. Okay, so we have ta-di, ta-di-mi, ta-di, ta. Let's take that extractable phrase. Let's take that subunit and let's compare it to our rhythmic sequence. We have toddy, toddy, and ta. Those go up here at the very top. But the new element in this subphrase is ta-di-mi. So that tells us that this is a great extractable pattern for ta-di-mi, for an 8th note followed by 2 16th notes, or a long sound followed by 2 short sounds on a beat. In our class, we notate it as ta-di-mi, 8th note followed by 2 16th notes. Real musicians have lots of ways that they notate it, and we will talk about that in the concept plans video. Okay, so now we have this extractable phrase that we can use for ta-di-mi. So if you are following along at home, making your own concepts and songs list, again, which we'll talk about later, this song, I Don't Care If the Rain Comes Down, can go on our ta-di-mi list. Because we have that extractable phrase 2 times in the song, which makes it really convenient. Let's look at this next section, I'm gonna dance all day. I have in here a quarter rest. So let's take that quarter rest and let's put it against our rhythmic and our metric sequence. So would this be a great use case for teaching quarter rest? In this case, no, because even though tadi and ta come before that quarter rest in our rhythmic sequence, we have this new unknown element, ta'adimi, is here again in this same extractable phrase. So because ta'adimi, which is way down here, is in this extractable phrase, this is not a great use case for teaching quarter rest. Does that make sense? So the new element surrounded by unknown elements. But we can take this and pull it down and look at where it lines up for ta'adimi. In this case, ta'adimi is the new element again, and it's surrounded by other known elements. Ta'adi, which is way up here, ta, way up here, and then ta, rest, also way up here. Okay, great. Let's look at this second half of the song. Hey, hey, carry me away. I'm gonna dance all day. Or ta, ta, takadimi ta, ta'adimi ta'adi ta. If we were to take this phrase, hey, hey, carry me away, ta, ta, takadimi ta, and compare that subunit to the other things in our rhythmic and metric sequence, we see that we have takadimi here as the unknown element, that's the new thing, surrounded by other known elements, ta, 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 or quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. So when we put this all together and we look at how many phrases we have of this song that we can pull for our use case in our music classroom, we see that every single subphrase has an extractable pattern, whether that be ta'adimi or, in the case of these two down here, takadimi. Great. So this song can go on 2 different lists. Okay, so that's a very quick example, 2 quick examples of how to see if a song is going to work to teach a concept, and if so, which one. Now, some of this conversation has to do with how we are using the song, whether it's a good song to teach, this concept versus that concept. And in the case of I Don't Care If the Rain Comes Down, do you see how often we have ta'adimi as a rhythmic element that we can use in any of these extractable phrases? Okay, that gives us a signal that this is a very useful song for this particular rhythmic element. In contrast, we do have this on our takadimi list now because we can see that we've circled takadimi in these extractable phrases, but it is not as great of a song for perhaps introducing takadimi as it is for ta'adimi, just because of how often we have ta'adimi versus takadimi in this song. And then the other thing is, if we were to use this to teach ta'adimi, notice that everything else that comes before it in this rhythmic sequence, all of that would be known material. Does that make sense? So that's not a reason to not use takadimi. It's just something that we're going to want to be kind of aware of when we introduce it. Okay. The other thing that I want to say is that this is the same process for melodic concepts, but also for pop music as well. So if students come to us with a specific song that they want to work on in class, we can make a mental map of the song by finding those extractable phrases and then comparing that material to our melodic sequence, exactly how we did here with rhythm. Okay, to summarize this, if we want to know if a song is going to work in our classroom from a musical analysis standpoint, from a musical content standpoint, we are going to sing the song, then we are going to find the extractable phrases, and then decide where that new rhythmic or melodic material is in that subphrase. We're going to think about what surrounds it. Again, we're looking for a new musical element surrounded by other known material. I mentioned earlier that we are probably not going to analyze every single song that we find completely from scratch. So, where do we find other resources? One place is from our own childhood. Oftentimes, if we look back in our childhood, there were songs that we would sing maybe when we were going to bed or maybe when we woke up. Maybe we had songs about going around the house or any other daily activities. Maybe we had songs that we sang with our caregivers. Those are great starting points for finding songs to use, especially with our lower elementary students. We can also, like we just talked about, find pop music. We can do playground field research. search. This is really fun. This is when we go to the playground at our school or the cafeteria or any other place where students are just kind of hanging out, and we observe what kind of songs or chants or games are they using already on their own organically. I have found a couple of really fun rhymes and games from students this way. And then if we have a good relationship with these students, we can go up to them and say, hey, can you teach me this song? Can you teach me this game? Hey, can I play this game with you? Playground field research. We can also use books and websites, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And then the last one right here, write your own. Hey, we are musicians ourselves, right? And so we have what it takes to write our own material for our classroom. So we are also a good resource when it comes to where to find songs. Here are some of the books that I find myself going to over and over, and I know that I could definitely add more things to this list. Obviously, stocking a bookshelf with anthologies like these is a really good way to go through a music budget very quickly. But luckily for us, we do not necessarily need to own each of these books in order for them to be useful. So finding books, local ORF chapters or Kodaly chapters often have a loaner library that we can be a part of. So oftentimes people in those chapters will kind of pool their resources together to create a chapter sharing a loan program. So that's a great option. Local libraries are such a great spot for finding children's songs and folk music. I like to look in the music section. Sometimes that is a little bit small, but also in the children's section. Those have oftentimes some really good selections for us. And then, of course, friends. We live in a network of other elementary general music teachers. Even though we are normally the only elementary teacher at our campus, elementary music teacher at our campus, we are definitely not the only elementary music teacher in our community. So using a network of other people to help support us in this repertoire search can be very useful. Let's look at websites. I will let you take a screenshot of these. Again, there are so many more that I could add here. In general, I am a big fan of using songs from places that give their sources for the material, because music doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It exists in a social and historical and cultural context. So it's really exciting when we can be stewards of that context, especially because we are passing down these songs orally to the next generation. So that's something that I think about, is making sure that I am using sources that cite their sources for this repertoire. And now we are at song lists. It is helpful to have a document with the songs that we love and that our students love, and organized by pedagogical concept. Here is an example. So I'll go to the repertoire section, and then let's look at this first grade song list. And I'll go ahead and open up the anthology as well. So here we have our musical elements along the left-hand side, and then the songs that we can use to teach those elements. And you'll also notice up here I have our big macro concepts like we talked about in the previous video. So I have our macro concepts, our discipline-specific concepts, and then the songs that we can use to teach them. Now, when we make these lists, we do not need to have them in a template with specific colors or specific fonts or anything like that. Any type of list where your brain just knows that that is where we are storing our songs that we're going to use in the classroom, that is perfect. Because again, you'll recall from that first video, we talked about how the templates and the color coding and the fonts, that is not the point. The point is the system of thinking so that we know where we're going throughout the year. Okay, so we have our concepts, we have our songs, we have our big picture concepts, and then I've gone ahead and created an anthology for each grade level. So this is the first grade anthology so that they're all in one place. If you enjoy printing things out, then this is nice just to be able to print it one time and have all of our first grade songs here in one collection. If you are interested in a song list like this, if you're interested in seeing it and kind of clicking around a little bit more, I have a place where you can find a sample one like this for free, and I will link that down below. Okay, when I make these song lists, there are a few things that I like to think about personally, and you might have a different list hanging around in the back of your head. And this could be, this could be its own video, and our criteria for what songs we use in our classroom could definitely take up a lot more of this discussion. But very quickly, let me zoom through just a few things that I'm thinking about. One thing for me is that I try to make sure that we are not doing all of our songs for each concept in English, because music is not just in English. So if I were making this first grade list from scratch using this website or any of the other resources that we've talked today, definitely does not have to be this website, I might be looking for a game that I can use with lower elementary. So I'll set my game level to lower elementary, and I might be looking for a game that we can sing in Spanish. So I'll come over here to language and select Spanish. And I might just cast like kind of a wide net that way as I am looking. Another thing that I'm thinking through is that I want our songs to have some amount of crossover in terms of musical concepts. Not all the same concepts, not all the same content, certainly, because that would make for a pretty boring repertoire selection if all of our songs sounded the same, right? But to maximize our time, if we are working on, let's just take, for example, if we are working on law and ta rest at the same time, then having some songs, at least a song, that can be a crossover for both concepts, that helps us really maximize the time and be a little bit more strategic with our song selection. So for that, I might jump over here to melodic focus and look at law, and I might look at a rhythmic focus of ta rest and go through songs like that. Or maybe we decide that we're in a situation where we want to introduce a song earlier in the year, like introduce a ta and toddy song earlier in the year, and then bring it back later in the year to work on law, just as an example. So I might set my melodic context to any of these patterns with law, and I might make my rhythmic focus ta and toddy, and look at songs that have both of those concepts in them. That way, again, I can introduce something at the beginning of the year and then bring it back later. And then the last thing I'll point out, especially for lower elementary, I love to have a just for fun category. And of course, the songs that we choose for teaching the other concepts in this list hopefully are fun as well, right? And worthy of singing and playing the game too and having that experience just on their own. But not every single piece of repertoire needs to have a very specific concept objective. Sometimes songs are just fun to sing, and that's enough reason to include them in our lists. Okay, this repertoire piece is so fun. This is a big topic because repertoire selection is such a big part of planning our year. Today, we have looked at how to know if a song will work for our curriculum from a musical standpoint. We've explored some places to find songs, and we've thought through a few things to keep in mind that we can keep in mind as we create grade level song lists. So at this point, we know why we are teaching, we know what we are teaching, we know when we are teaching it, and now we have our repertoire. So we know what materials to use. And the only thing left is to create the activities themselves. And that is what we will talk about in the next video. So until then, if you have a question or a comment, I would love to hear from you. You can drop it below. You can find me on Instagram. I am at Victoria Bowler, or you can shoot me an email, victoria@victoriabowler.com. Okay, I will see you in the next video.